Hi, this is Professor Salazar, and I would like to start off this video by talking about two-factor authentication, adding a type of two-factor authentication whenever you remote into a server using SSH and using Google Authenticator as your second source of authentication. So what I'm going to do first is run Ubuntu. And I'm going to use my Windows machine to remote into it using SSH. And you're going to see that all I'm going to use is a username and password in order to remote in using SSH. Now, after I add two-factor authentication, you're also going to see that I'm going to have to verify with a verification code that's running on my Google Authenticator app on my phone, and then I'll have to supply the password. Okay, so let me first start off by sharing my screen. And I'm going to go ahead and share my second screen. And let me start by doing this. Let me first open up PowerShell. And I'm going to run an Ubuntu on the Windows subsystem for Linux. And in order to do this, I'm going to type in WSL --install -d Ubuntu. So it's saying installing. This may take a few minutes. And it's asking me to enter a Unix username. So I'm just going to type in user01 and my password. It's asking me to retype my password. And now I have Ubuntu running on my Windows machine. And right now I don't have anything in my Ubuntu machine other than the fact that I have a Linux distribution of Ubuntu running on top of Windows. The first thing that I'm going to do is check for updates and apply any upgrades to any software packages that I may have. So to check for updates, I'm going to type in sudo apt update. You can see that there's a total of 130 packages that need to be upgraded. So in order to upgrade those packages, I'm going to type in sudo apt upgrade -y. And this is going to take a minute or so just to upgrade all of the 130 packages that need to be updated. And if you're taking a look at my progress bar, it's around 60% right now, moving over to 70%, 80%, 90%, and in a few seconds, it'll finish. Okay, so I'm done applying updates. I'm also going to run a command in order to use ifconfig to check for my update. And I'm going to type in the command sudo apt install net-tools. And that's going to allow me to run a command called ifconfig. Now, the ifconfig is similar to the ipconfig in Windows that will allow you to see your IP address. So if I type in ifconfig, I'll see my IP address. And right here, my IP address shows as 172.21.219.132. Now, I need a way of having this ability for allowing people to remote into this Ubuntu machine. If they ever need to remote in, I'm going to install a tool called OpenSSH. So in order to allow people to remote into my Ubuntu machine remotely, I'm going to type in a command that's called sudo apt install open ssh-server -y. Okay. Now all I need to do is move over to my Windows machine, and now I can remote in using SSH. So again, I'm going to type in the command ifconfig and check for my IP address. Then I'm going to open up PowerShell for my Windows computer. And let me go ahead and move it to the right-hand side. You'll see on the right-hand side, I'm running Windows. On the left-hand side, I'm running Linux. So over here, if I want to remote into my Linux machine, I can type in SSH followed by the username at the IP address, which is 172.21.219.132. And you'll see that it says, do I want to continue connecting? I'm going to type yes. And it asks me for my password. So I'm going to type in my password. And now I'm remoted into my Ubuntu machine. Okay. So assuming I did this correctly, and this is just to make sure that I'm actually remoted into my machine, I can go over to my Ubuntu machine and create a folder by typing in the command mkdir followed by the name of the folder. I'm going to make a folder called folder1. Now, if I do ls to view that folder, I could see it in blue called folder1. And I can also cd into that folder, meaning I can change the directory to folder1. Now, if I want to make a file there, I could type in the command touch followed by the file name. I'll type in file1.txt. And now if I do ls again, I'll see that inside folder1, there's a file1.txt file. Now, if I want to add data to that file1.txt file, I can use a text editor called nano by typing in sudo nano, the name of the file. It opens up in this text editor and I can type in whatever I want. My name is Professor Salazar. Okay. And I'm going to type Control X, Y, and Enter to save the contents. And now if I go over here to my Windows machine, assuming I've already connected using SSH, I can do ls. I can see that there's a folder1. And if I type in cd folder1 and do ls, I can see that there's a file1.txt in my Ubuntu computer. And if I want to view the contents of that file1.txt file, I could type in cat file1.txt, and it's going to show me what I typed earlier. Now, this file1.txt that says, hi, my name is Professor Salazar, is located inside my Ubuntu machine, and I'm remoted into it using this command called SSH. Okay. Now, the problem with using SSH is that it's only one type of authentication. It only takes a single authentication method in order to connect. And that single authentication method is usually something like a username or password, or a combination of a username and password. And that single type of authentication is not usually considered to be safe. The reason being is because all someone needs to do is just know your username and password, or guess your username and password. If you use two-factor authentication, well, now somebody has to know your username and password, and that same person also has to have something like a code or an authenticator app that's running on your phone that's randomly generating a random number like every 30 seconds or so. And it's not likely that somebody out there who's hacking your computer is going to have something like your phone, and know your username and password. Okay, so let's go ahead and add two-factor authentication to our Ubuntu machine. Okay, so I'm going to exit out of my SSH session. I'm going to go over here and I'll go ahead and clear the screen. And by the way, this is PowerShell and I'm running it off of my Windows machine. I'm going to go over to my Ubuntu machine and I'm going to type in some code that's going to allow me to run the Google Authenticator service on my Ubuntu machine. Now, before I do that, I really want to talk about the importance of adding two-factor authentication to your server. It's really important that you do this because, again, it's going to add an extra layer of protection for your accounts, for your computers, for your SSH sessions that you're using. You don't normally just want to allow anybody to remote in. You want to make sure that only the users that are authorized to remote in are able to access your computers remotely. Okay. So let me go ahead and do this before I start. I'm going to run some commands in order to add the Google Authenticator service on my Ubuntu machine. I'm going to type in the command sudo apt install libpam-google-authenticator. It's going to ask me if I want to continue, so I'm going to type a Y. And now that I have the Google Authenticator app running on my Ubuntu machine, I'm going to call it by typing the following command: Google-authenticator. And it asks me if I want to authenticate tokens to be time-based. I'm going to type Y. And it shows me this QR code. So I'm going to go ahead and make this bigger. And I'm going to scan this QR code with my Authenticator app that's running on my phone right now. So I'm going to open up the Google Authenticator service. And I'm going to click the plus sign to scan a QR code. And it automatically adds the code to my Google Authenticator app. And now what I have to do is I have to use my Authenticator app to finish this setup. So it's going to verify that it's me by entering in the code that it's showing me. It shows 862227. And it asks me, do you want me to update your home file? I'm going to type yes. It asks me if I want to increase the chances to prevent any man-in-the-middle attacks. I'm going to type a Y for yes. It asks me if I want to continue generating a new code every 30 seconds. I'm going to type yes. And it asks me if I want to harden against brute force attacks. I'm going to type yes. And that's pretty much it right there. Now, I just added the Google Authenticator service to my Ubuntu machine. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to configure SSH to use the Google Authenticator. And there's some configuration here, so please stay with me. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to edit the SSH PAM configuration by typing in, and let me make this bigger so you could see it. I'm going to type in the command sudo nano/etc/pam.d/sshd. And this configuration file just needs one thing to be added. Up at the top, right below the comment, I'm going to type in auth required pam_google_authenticator.so. Let me check to make sure I spelled that correctly. Okay. I'm going to save and exit by typing in Control X, Y, and Enter. Then I'm going to edit the SSH configuration file to allow Google Authenticator. So I'm going to open the SSH configuration file by typing in sudo nano /etc/ssh/sshd_config. And right here, I have to make a few changes. Under the line that's called authentication, let me go look for it. Right here, there's a line, there's a comment called authentication, and right underneath it, I'm going to type in challenge response authentication space yes. Okay, challenge response authentication yes. There's a space between all that and the yes. Then I'm going to scroll down and look for something called KBD interactive authentication. So here it is. KBD interactive authentication says no, so I'm going to change that to yes. And then I'm going to save the changes and exit. I'm going to do Control X, Y, and enter. And now I'm going to restart the SSH service that's running on my Ubuntu machine. I'm going to do sudo systemctl restart SSH. Okay, so the SSH service just restarted. And now I'll go back and minimize this to its original form, to its original format. I'm going to make this window the same size as it was earlier. And now when I SSH in or remote in using SSH from my Windows PowerShell over to my Ubuntu, not only is it going to ask me for my username and password, but it's also going to ask me for my verification code that I have running on my Google Authenticator app. So let's take a look at this two-factor authentication. I'm going to type in that same command in order to remote in. And now it's asking me for a verification code. So now in order to remote in, I have to use my Google Authenticator app and type in the code that's randomly being generated every 30 seconds. So let me go ahead and type that in. And now it's asking me for the password, which is my second authentication. And now I'm remoted in. So you see, the way that you can add some type of two-factor authentication to your Ubuntu machine is by adding this Google Authenticator to your Ubuntu machine, which will allow you to protect your computer by adding some type of two-factor authentication, as opposed to just remoting in, just using a username and password. Now it asks me for a verification code that's running on my Google Authenticator app. And after I type in the code from my Google Authenticator app, then it also asks me for my password. And that's what you would call two-factor authentication. Now that I'm remoted in, I could do ls, I could cd into folder 1, I can type ls, and I could do cat followed by the file name, and it's going to show me what I typed earlier. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing. And I just wanted everybody to see how easy it actually is to install two-factor authentication and how useful it is and the importance of using it. Most people do not like using two-factor authentication because it's an extra step that you need to take in order to log into your system. But just think of it this way. That extra step is that extra added layer of security that you're adding to your computer. Think of it like having two locks on your front door when you come into your home or when you leave your home. for some of us, we have 2 locks, not just one. Why are you going to have 2 locks? Well, because you want to make it more difficult for somebody to break into your home. Maybe you have something valuable to protect inside your home. So therefore, you would have 2 locks, not just one. Same thing with your accounts that you have online or with your computers. A lot of times you want to harden your systems and you want to add an extra added layer of security to your system, not just a username and password. You also want to add two-factor authentication, like using your Google Authenticator app or any authenticator app out there. And it's going to allow you to make it less convenient for you to log in, but more secure. And the more secure you make your systems, the less convenient it's going to be for somebody else to log in. But guess what? The less convenient it is for somebody to log in, the more secure your systems are going to be in the end. Okay, so I'll go ahead and end here. If anyone has any questions, please send me an email. Thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you on the next one.